Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Mostly Superheroes. I'm Logan, and today we are talking about The Umbrella Academy on Netflix. Hopefully, you've been enjoying the show. We got a lot of different kinds of content going out there. Today is only going to be about The Umbrella Academy. Um, so it's going to be seasons 1 and 2. Full spoiler alert right now. We're going to bust this thing wide open. I'm going to tackle both seasons today and just talk through it. I'm coming fresh off watching it straight through. Season 1 for the second time, honestly. I watched it when it first came out and just watched it straight through with my fiance. It was her first time, and we just finished season 2 just a couple days ago. So we're just going to talk through the show. We're going to expose every angle of it, talk about it episode by episode. Sounds kind of daunting, but honestly, I'm going from Wikipedia here along with the Netflix website and just looking at the episodes. Going to give my take on it, and hopefully you enjoy it. Want to hear from you as well and call out anything that I miss, which will be a ton of missed content, I'm sure. But check us out on social media and on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube. Get that video content for your viewing pleasure. But we want to hear from you. I've also been teasing out the studio phone, and I'm finally going to give it to you just right now, out of the gate. We haven't started taking calls too seriously yet, but if I don't put the number out there, it's just not going to happen. So we got it up here in the studio. I don't know if you can see it with the shots I'm using today, but the number is 754 call log. That's 754-225-5564. You'll see. We'll start taking call-ins eventually, but in the meantime, feel free to shoot messages to it. Call, leave us a message. You might even get featured on the show. I'm all about engaging with the people that listen to us most, and if I can get you on here and you want to be on here, then we'll make it happen. But enough housekeeping. Let's just dive right into the Umbrella Academy. Full spoilers ahead. We're gonna bust it open. Season 1. So setting the stage. This show opens up with a very simple premise. In 1989. 43 women simultaneously give birth at the same exact time all around the world. And these folks, we would come to find out, would be special individuals with powers. Okay, so I mean, right off the bat, this show grabbed me. I remember watching this right when it came out. Like, what a premise! Like, what is this? What is this goofy land? I have no previous knowledge, first of all, of the Umbrella Academy. I've never heard of it other than when it came out on TV. Obviously, I don't even know if there is comic books or other source material. I would assume so. Actually, I take that back. I do know at least one person that I think maybe the main person that wrote this. This is my fiance that told me this. That I think Story. I'm gonna say it wrong. It's a band member that actually wrote this comic book. And we will confirm what it is. I don't even want to say it. I was going to say story of the year, and I don't think that's right. So let me confirm. And better yet, why don't you guys correct me? Why don't you tell me which band member it is that wrote this comic book? She's going to kill me when she listens to this and finds out that I don't remember, because I believe it's even a St. Louis band, which is where we're located. But anyway, so kind of backtracking already, what I actually do know. That there is some source material, but what a premise, right? 43 women simultaneously give birth at the same time. So this guy, Sir Reginald Hargreaves, billionaire, seems like a genius. Seems like he's like one of these guys that like does things like trips around the world and very interested in science and very eccentric and just kind of like a wanting to know of all things, if you will. And this guy goes around and he actually snatches up, seven of them, seven of the 42. Yes, found and adopted by this Reginald Hargreaves. And I mean, it's really funny how they kind of just blast through this storyline in episode 1. They show him just going right up to one of the mothers. In the show, that you actually see a mother that is at a swimming pool. She's not a mother yet. She's just a young woman. In a swimming pool, she jumps in the pool, and by the time she comes up for air, she is in labor, giving a baby. Well, this guy comes up and says, "How much do you want for the baby?" This Sir Reginald Hargreaves. So he goes around, he snatches all these guys up. We find out, this is where we get a fast forward in time, and we find out that he actually raised these 7 people to be a superhero team, if you will, and that's the name of the show, the Umbrella Academy. Which, as you'll find out throughout the show, that umbrella I think is really because of Sir Reginald Hargreaves. Seems to be like a staple item that he uses all the time. He always has an umbrella when he's walking around. Cool. So the Umbrella Academy. So years later, we get dropped into each of these 7 people's lives. And just to blast through them real quick, we have Luther. He's number 1. He's on the moon. Like that's literally what you find out right away. He's on the moon, and he's like kind of, you can tell he's been up there for a while. Turns out, he's been up there for many years. He comes back. I'm getting ahead of myself. So we got Luther. We got number 2, which I believe that's Diego. And just to kind of get through their powers real quick. Luther's like a super strong dude, and he's huge. He's a huge guy. Diego can like throw knives in a curvy fashion. Like he can kind of like I picture like Wanted. Like, remember the movie Wanted with Angelina Jolie, and they're whipping bullets around. This guy whips knives around, and honestly, cool power, I guess, and it seems to come in handy now and then, but kind of lame, but whatever. And you have to forgive me, I always forget the numbers. I think number 3, I don't even know. I think that might be Allison, I believe. And if I get the numbers wrong, again, feel free to correct me. But Allison, she has probably the best power of all, essentially mind control. As long as she says the words, I heard a rumor before, whatever she tells any person, she can tell them what to do. Pretty badass. Number 4 is Klaus. He can speak with the dead. Number 5. So number 5 is a little bit of a deeper storyline, but just to get him out of the way, he's a time traveler. I said that Allison maybe had the best powers. Now that I'm hearing that out loud, time travel would be a pretty sick one, but turns out he can't do it so well. But he can also teleport. Pretty cool powers. So he can like do spatial jumps and teleport. More about him. Well, just real quick. So we find out at pilot, he's gone missing about 17 years ago, I believe, when they were all kids. And we find out how that happened later. We'll talk about that. And number 6, is that Ben? That's got to be Ben, right? So Ben is I might be getting Ben and Allison mixed up on their numbers. They don't really ever say their numbers hardly at all. But Ben is, first of all, he has like he can turn into basically an octopus, I guess. Like octopus arms come out of his body, and he can like destroy people. He doesn't like to do it because we find out in a flashback, I think in this episode, that it's like, I don't know if it hurts or if it's bad, but he doesn't really like to do it. They kind of, the rest of the Umbrella Academy makes him use his powers. And then we find out in the future that Ben is actually dead. And we don't really know how yet this early on, but we're going to talk more about that too, because I have some thoughts about Ben's death. And then lastly, of course, number 7, who has no powers at all, right? Again, early season 1. So in this first episode, we find out that Sir Reginald Hargreaves has died. It makes major news. It's all over television. And we kind of get a sense of where all these people are and their lives. At the same time, we find out kind of that this General Reginald Hargreaves, Sir Reginald Hargreaves, their dad. I'm going to start calling him Reginald, I guess, sometime for short. Their dad. Call him Dad. They're all kind of finding out at the same time that he's dead. So just kind of run through their life real quick. Luther's on the moon. Allison's a movie star. Like, she's like had a crazy successful career. Klaus is having all sorts of issues. Drugs. I think when we get dropped into his life, he's getting out of rehab. Again, number 5 is missing. Ben is dead. And number 7, her name is, I always get her name wrong. Vanya. That's it, Vanya. She turns out that she's just like a normal person, basically, like likes playing the violin and just trying to like be a person. So they all get back for their dad's funeral, and this is what brings them all back into each other's lives. You can see there's obviously been some kind of falling out. They're all spread out all over the place. And the name of the episode is even called "We Only See Each Other at Weddings and Funerals." And that's exactly what's happening here. They're here for a funeral. Their dads, and of course, being a superhero team, there is some suspicion of foul play that he might have been murdered. And this is where the storyline, will start to get a little complicated as to why this person would be killed, who wanted him dead. And honestly, for us, the viewer, it was a lot to take in. I remember, and I'm just going to be full disclosure real quick, just kind of getting this high level stuff because we're talking about this show. Obviously, I like it. But if I'm being honest about season 1, I'm going to poke holes throughout it because there are just things that I think people generally agree. It was kind of a slow show. Like there were 10 episodes, but like, man, it felt long. And it felt like, I think a lot of it was just how the story was told. Season 2 picked it up. I'm telling you, they came back around. So that's kind of my takeaway. If that's why you're listening to this episode, you just want to know that, go watch it. It's great. Anyway, so why is this guy dead? Could he be killed? Who knows? Okay, so that's season 1. They drop us in, our episode 1. Moving to episode 2, season 1, moving along. 5 has now returned at the end of episode 1. He's just kind of dropped in out of nowhere to greet the team who is there all at the house for their dad's funeral. And it's a wild scene. There's a portal in the sky. You see an old man turn into a young boy and then drop out. Turns out this is number 5. This is where it gets like fun and crazy, right? Okay, so the kid now, he explains to everyone he's actually been in the future, stuck there for 46 years or something like that. And he said he's lived a full life. He's basically, he's not an old man, but he's older. But now this time travel thing, he got it wrong. He got the formula wrong. So now he's a kid. He's in a kid's body. As far as like time travel mishaps, that's a lot like what happens in Avengers Endgame, right? I mean, they're putting Scott, Ant-Man, just really jumping around here, but they do the time travel test and he changes bodies, right? He's like an old man, he's a young boy, he's like in the middle. And this is kind of seems like what's happened. He's become a young man. So he's back and he's telling everybody about this apocalypse that's coming. And this is obviously now what they're going to have to handle in the season 1. Turns out the apocalypse is going to happen in 3 days, right? We find that out, I believe, at the end of episode 1. And I think this is where they made a mistake on season 1, in my opinion. So this is where, I mean, obviously this is all my opinion. You're getting my take here. They stretched this 3-day apocalypse out for 10 episodes. And man, it just feels like it just takes so long. So anyway, they got 3 days for this apocalypse. All right, so then we find out that number 5, I forget his actual name. I'll think of it. I don't know if they even say it, honestly. But he is on the run he's actually on the run from what we've come to find out is some kind of time bureau. And if you're a comic book fan, there's always some variations of a time bureau throughout, like DC Comics. They have a time bureau, like in DC Legends of Tomorrow. If you watch that, it's really funny. It's like a bureaucratic office, right? There's lots of order. They're maintaining a timeline. And obviously, we assume this early in season 1 that he's jumping around and this time bureau is not liking it. So they send these 2 agents. They send like a SWAT team first, and he just kills them all immediately. Great scene in a donut diner. And I might be getting ahead of myself, but I don't think so. I think this is actually episode 2. This is where Cha-Cha and Hazel, since this SWAT team couldn't bring down this guy. They're looking for a guy, right? They don't know that he's transformed into a kid. They enter Cha-Cha and Hazel. This is a great. These characters really do make the show, and it was really definitely one of the things I missed most. Spoiler alert again about season 2. because if you're like me and you've seen them all, you kind of know where that goes. But just for sticking with the storyline here, Cha-Cha is played by Mary J. Blige, and Hazel, I don't know his name, but he plays the big, like, actual person in real life. But in the show Mindhunter, I believe also on Netflix, he plays that big murdery guy on Mindhunter, like the biggest guy. I mean, if you watch that show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He has that voice and talks very diligently, like kind of like that dialect. Just a great actor. I mean, this guy's great. So these two are looking for him, and their dynamic is great. They give us all the backstory. They're just two people working for the man. They don't like what they're doing. Hazel's on his way out. Cha-Cha's like, "Hey, man, get your stuff together. We need to do a job here." And you can just tell he's just fed up. They're veterans. They're like legends. Again, you're gonna hear me talk a lot about them as I go through this, because they honestly are, one of the best parts of the whole show, I think. So here in season 2, they're looking for them. You're getting little tidbits of what's happening on that side. They're still talking. Luther is still trying to figure out like who killed their dad. He's really stuck on this, and Diego's pushing back. Turns out that it's because, and we find out at the end of this episode, I believe, Allison sees old surveillance videos of when they were kids. So couple things here. One, you find out just kind of how sadistic, I don't know if sadistic is the right word, but paranoid and just needing to have control of everything. He being their dad has surveillance footage of the whole house, even in their rooms. And anyway, she's looking at him just for nostalgia, I believe. She's just trying to like reflect back on as they were kids. Who knows? Allison, I have all sorts of thoughts about Allison. For one, she doesn't use that power near enough. I'll tell you that. I feel like every time she's in a pickle, I'm just like, use your mind control power. But anyway, she finds out that her mom was involved with the dad's death. And we haven't even talked about two of the craziest characters from the whole show. You have, first of all, their mom, who is a robot. I don't know the actress's name that plays her, but she's so great. But she's a robot that was built and programmed by their dad, Sir Reginald Hargreaves. And you're going to hear me mess up that last name throughout this too, because I do it all the time. So she's a robot that's been programmed to come in and like take care of the kids. Well, we find out she was somewhat involved with the dad's death, and by involved I mean it's a video of him dying, her like picking up his monocle and like walking away while he's like actively dying. So not killing him by any means, but definitely like, something like something happened to where she just walked off. And then we are also wondering if this other character that I haven't even mentioned yet, and by this point, if you're a big fan, you're like, have you not talked about Pogo? Pogo's the talking chimpanzee ape. I think I always get mixed up about what chimps are called and apes and whatnot. I believe I think Hargreaves calls him an ape, but he can talk. And we're like, okay, how'd that happen? And I think we get that story in season 2. So if you're thinking you find out in season 1, you got to wait a while. And here's the thing about this show, just an overarching thing. There are so many unknowns. Like so much to know about, like where did Pogo come from? Who is this Hargreaves guy? But honestly, I think it's one of the things that the show has going for it, because it has endless directions it can go. Anyway, back to season 1. So we're finding out that at the end of season 2, we find out that not only is the apocalypse in 3 days, but 5 finally shares with, I believe, Vanya, that the siblings are all dead at the end of this apocalypse. Like he's there. They do a flashback to the future. That's a confusing sentence. And he finds all of his brothers and sisters there, dead in the rubble. So now not only do we know that the Umbrella Academy are involved and try to stop the apocalypse, but that they inevitably fail and die. So now moving on to episode 3, this is where Allison brings everyone into the fold that, the mom had something to do with the death of Hargreaves, their dad. Diego ain't hearing it. He's just like, Mom would never do this. He's such a mama's boy. He loves his mom so much. And I'm like, dude, she's a robot. Like, she's a robot. Like, chill out about like your mom. Like, whatever. Like, she's a robot. Like, you don't have to love your mom. That I love my mom, but my mom's not a robot. Anyway, so she shares with the rest of the group. They have this big discussion about, do we need to shut down our mom? And they're like, no, we don't need to do that. Diego actually is forced to share that he's the one that hid the monocle, which Luther's been on the hunt for, because he didn't want anyone to know that his mom was there, which is shady from the get-go. And I'll be honest, Diego, I think, is just kind of a bitch, honestly. Just complains a lot. I feel like he's kind of dumb, and they explore that in season 2 a lot more, and we'll get there. So then in the middle of all this, they're talking about, did mom kill? What happened to dad? Well, then in the middle of this, Cha-Cha and Hazel actually discover where they all live. They know that the number 5 is now a child, like in a kid's body. I mean, not a child. This kid, number 5, just to give a shout out real quick. Don't know his name either. He is killing it. He's probably maybe the best character. He's just a really good actor. He really makes you believe that he is like a 50-year-old man. So that was really, that's really great. I mean, I hope they keep bringing him back. I saw a rumor that people are wanting him to play a new Robin character, maybe in the DCEU or the stuff that HBO Max is going on with the DC universe. Who knows? That'd be cool. I say, yeah, sure, go for it. So anyway, we find out that Cha-Cha and Hazel, they bust in. There's a big fight scene. This is one of the best parts of the early part of the show. You finally get to see like this team kind of loosely trying to fight together again after 17 years. It's kind of a shit show. Luther ends up getting I'm kind of jumping ahead, but you see everybody's powers a little bit, and it's fine. It's fun enough. But the big thing that happens is Luther, who is this giant, strong guy, they make how big he is. They zoom in on the shots of him like putting on his coat and like how big this coat is. And this chandelier falls on him. And when he stands up, all of his siblings, of course, are right there. They're all watching. And his coat rips off. And we see that he is not just a big dude. He is like a animal-human hybrid of some kind. He's got like ape-like chest, very hairy. I'm not even going to lie. Like, I honestly thought at that time, and even as I rewatched it for the second time, that there was some kind of werewolf factor. And you're probably laughing right now. It's like, yeah, he wasn't a werewolf. I'm like, I know, but if you look at what happens, he's on the moon for 4 years. The moon, very werewolfy. Well, then he's big and hairy, and Diego even makes a comment. Wow, dude, you got really big. He's like, you got so big. I'm like, so I know you haven't seen each other in a long time. I mean, it sounds like minimum 4 or 5 years. But if you're saying that he's like significantly bigger, like what does that mean? Does that mean he was on the moon, like getting bigger? That was a confusing plot point. Just so you're listening right now, nix that. There was no, as far as I can tell, there were no werewolf ties. It turns out, well, perfect segue. Man on the Moon is the name of episode 4. And we find out that not only is he not a werewolf, basically what happens is Luther is the only kid left that stays. He's the only one that stays with his dad. He's the only one that's like doing missions left upwards of, like I said, like 4 years ago. And this mission that his dad sends him on, which I wish I knew more about this mission, but I don't know if it necessarily matters, goes wrong. Luther's dying. He's on a table, and Hargreaves makes the last minute decision, like with a heavy heart. You can see on his face that he's going to stick this needle in him to save his life. Well, it does, but then when he wakes up, Luther is huge, and he's got this werewolf looking body that we talked about, and he's devastated. This is how he's going to look. And I'm reading the description right here. They do confirm that it is part of an ape. So then we find out a little bit more about Luther and kind of his mission to the moon. And then they also find out that their mom, during the Hazel and Cha-Cha attack in the last episode, their mom has been destroyed, and they assume it was them. But actually what we know from the end of the episode, in episode 3, Diego actually did it, because he thinks through everything that's happened, and he comes to the conclusion that Hargreaves is very much still in the programming of his mom, and he just can't trust her. And it isn't until, well, we'll talk about the end of this episode. I don't think it's this episode, but she ends up coming back. Don't worry. Man on the Moon, episode 4. We have 5. He actually is on the hunt for this prosthetic eye. So this is like a big plot point throughout season 1, at least the first half. He's looking for this prosthetic eye. He says that Luther was holding it in his hand, or he sees that at the time of the apocalypse, and he goes to this company called Meritech, and basically tells this scientist there, "You're going to tell me about this eye." And we come to find out that this guy is kind of like in black market moving of this eye that apparently was in the socket of the person that causes the apocalypse. That's what we're led to believe. So this is 5. This is a whole thing of him searching for this eye. Again, kind of gets boring, honestly. I don't want to sit here and, again, I'm going to poke holes in this show, well, at least season 1. And it just drug on. And it's like, okay, so he's got to find this eye, blah, 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 blah. So Cha-Cha and Hazel find out about 5 looking for this eye, and they go to the lab. They end up burning it all down. And then Diego and Luther end up finding 5 passed out drunk because he's given up. He's like, you know what? There's no way it's going to work. And this is where the show is just like extra frustrating, which I guess this was the point. It's kind of like in the Avengers, right? The first Avengers movie. You're going to catch me referencing stuff throughout this. Like the Avengers couldn't get along in the first movie. Like they were just too different, and they were just trying to make it happen, but it was just too much. That's very much what's happening in the Umbrella Academy. These guys they're brother and sister, and they fight like it. But it's so frustrating to me how little they really do talk to each other. And it's fine, but 5 is also saying the whole time, like, I have to have you guys help me. He's going around to each of them, like saying, like, you guys don't understand how important this is. But then we find out that, it's like, I guess that's the point. He's just trying to get the team on the same page, but it just felt so drug out. It's like, okay, I get it for a couple episodes, but if you're doing this the whole season, it gets old really fast. Anyway, so once they get together with 5, let's see here. We know that Klaus actually got kidnapped by Cha-Cha and Hazel after the big attack. So this episode, talks a lot about that too. And he's in this hotel room. They're holding them, trying to get him to tell him about number 5 and what happens. And he ends up getting free, but at the expense of Diego's, I guess, love interest, who's a cop. You haven't heard me mention her yet because honestly, I just wasn't really invested in the character. But it's like Diego's friend cop that he's hanging out with the whole time. She gets killed by Cha-Cha and Hazel. When Klaus gets out and he runs from the hotel, escaping from Cha-Cha and Hazel, he has a briefcase with him. And this is where they did a good job, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it. They always end the episode with just like a crazy cliffhanger. And so he leaves and he takes with him their briefcase, which we know is important because it was hidden like an event or something in the hotel room. He gets on a bus. He's sitting there. He's just happy to be alive, opens it up, vanishes. And we're assumed to believe that he has time traveled. But that's all you see. Number 5. This is episode 5. And they titled it number 5. So perfect. So this is where we get some info on 5. And we find out like what actually happened in the future. And it's one of those times where you're like, all right, here we go. They're giving us some backstory. Well, basically it shows him walking through an apocalyptic world, carrying a wagon. Excuse me, just had a burp. Sorry, I just had lunch, so feeling nice and full. And we find out that he's walking through this apocalyptic world. No one's alive. It seems like he's the only one there. And we see him grow into this 50-year-old something man with a big long beard, gray hair. And just first of all, boring. So boring. Like, I mean, I get that he was stuck for that long. And I guess there was just nowhere to go. I guess that like he truly like traveled the world and like looked around and I mean, at least the US. I don't know if he was traveling continents. I don't think he's taking any planes or ships. I guess he can spatial jump, but that seems to have its limitations. To me, it seems like he can only like really do it within, I don't even know, half a mile, even that quarter mile. Um, well, anyway, as an older man, he's approached by who we will come to know as the Handler. And this woman, this actress, actor. She's fantastic. She's just really got the roll down. Very buttoned up, very know it all. Very like, hello, I'm here with a solution for you, and I know you're gonna take it. And basically, the offer is come be an assassin for what we come to find out is called the Commission. So the Commission is this time bureau that we've mentioned, right? So these are the people that have been sending Cha Cha and Hazel, and now they're offering this number 5 a job. I mean, obviously with his powers, but it's just funny. I've never really thought too much about it, but I guess she just shows up out of nowhere after 46 years. And I'm trying to think. Maybe it'll come to me as we go through the rest of this, but like I don't know what triggered her. Like why then and why not earlier? And did he get on her radar somehow? I'm not sure. But anyway, she shows up. Turns out he goes and he works for them for a while by killing people throughout history to maintain the timeline. So this is where like I was really wondering like who is the Commission and who is running the show, because they're very much set on the premise of like we decide. They don't say that. They say we got to maintain the timeline, and so then they are killing people and taking people out to like maintain whatever the main like timeline is. And it's just interesting. It's like who's deciding that, and like how do you know what's supposed to happen? And it got confusing a few times. I mean, more than a few times during season 1 of like, is something supposed to happen? And who's deciding? But anyway, he goes and works for him for a while, and then I believe he's supposed to shoot and kill John F. Kennedy, or maybe I forget that plot point. That's where it got confusing. But he decides at that moment that he's gonna leave and he's gonna abandon the Commission and try and travel back to his family. And apparently there was a formula for him to do, and that's where he messed up and became a little kid. So we also get a lot more of Vanya as we go through episodes 4 and 5. And so just touching on Vanya for a minute, she's, again, just trying to live a normal life. She's playing violin. Enter Leonard. And Leonard comes to her house, says he's there for a lesson, and then becomes very quickly the love interest of Vanya, and is very, very strange, is very secretive, definitely like just like he seems like a snake in the grass, and then we come to find out obviously he is. But anyway, he gets Vanya to stop taking her pills. We find out that her pills were actually because of her dad, and suppressed her powers. Kind of getting ahead of myself here, but we learn this kind of because she's not taking her medication and she goes to a violin audition, and this is where I got really confused about what her powers even are, because just break this open a little bit. Vanya's powers are suppressed, and it turns out she can control frequencies. So if there's a sound around or something she can hone on to, we find out even like things that are very close by, she makes that into energy around her. But during the audition, it's really strange. She's playing and you see the waves like moving away from her violin. She doesn't know she's having powers at this point just yet. And the people that are that are interviewing her or listening to her, the judges, I guess, they all of a sudden are like, "Ooh, yeah, you're good." And I was like, why do they like her now? Because like, it's not like she's Allison. She's not like rumoring them. But I don't know. It's like I was like, it was just like you could see it hit their hair. Anyway, it's kind of a boring part of the story, but I mean, I'm sure if you're like me, you're wondering at the same thing. Like, did she convince them to do it because they felt like energy around them? Whatever. So in this episode, we also get this episode 5 still in season 1. We find out about Klaus and where he went, which was great because you didn't know if we were going to find out. I felt like we were going to sit on that for 2 episodes, the way the show was moving. Turns out he gets traveled back to the 60s, right in the middle of Vietnam War. Very quickly falls in love with a man named Dave, I believe. Dave dies after, like, I think a year. They meet. They are together for a year. They fight in Vietnam. Dave dies in Vietnam, and Klaus comes back just like heartbroken, but also much older and wiser. And even Five calls him out immediately. He's like, "Hey man, I can tell you've been time traveling." So that's Klaus. That's number 5. And then, oh, I didn't even talk about this, but this is kind of the big thing we find out at the end. So I mentioned Vanya had that audition, right? Well, unbeknownst to Vanya, Leonard is the one that killed her. And I feel like that was pretty apparent for anybody that watches TV. You could tell that he was kind of a bad guy. And then Pogo at the very end, episode 5, reactivates Grace. That's their mom, and says, "You need to keep a secret. You need to keep this a secret from the kids." So we know right away that there's secrets happening. You don't know exactly if he means don't tell them that Diego killed you. Don't tell them what happened to their dad. I mean, it could be literally about anything. So then, number 6, episode 6, season 1. This is a fun one. This is where I'm gonna take a drink of water real quick. Very good. Very good water. You'll notice that I speak to you in between drinks because I don't want you to think that like your audio stopped or something. So this was a really fun episode. This one's titled "The Day That Wasn't," and here's the whole reason why. They jump you in at Wednesday, I believe at 8:45 a.m. if I remember correctly, and you're like, why do I? It's funny because they're in the middle of a living room. You're like, why do I need to know what day and time it is? Well, this is where time travel is going to come in. All right. So during Klaus's jump, he's in Vietnam. He falls in love with that Dave guy. Well, meanwhile, this is episode 6. The handler has taken 5 to commission headquarters. So I didn't. This is a big point. I missed him number in episode 5. Of course, it was titled the number 5. I don't know how I could forget. But basically, what's happened is he's been approached by the handler again. Now that he's in his young man's body, and they've been causing the commission problems. Right? They're fighting Cha-Cha and Hazel. So she comes into him and says, "Listen, if you come work for us again, this time at like a desk job, you don't have to be killing anybody, then we'll let your family live." I think they say the apocalypse still has to happen. Yes, she says it does have to happen, but she says that the family can live. So he says, "All right, I'll go with you." Well, she takes him back there. This is now episode 6. And he's in headquarters. He's like walking around. He's doing all sorts of stuff. You can tell he's definitely, in my opinion, you could tell. Maybe you couldn't at the time. So maybe we're led to believe that he's actually going to work there, but he's actually just scoping out the place. He like finds out where all the briefcases are because those allow you to time travel anywhere you want, whenever you want. And him, obviously, he has like major problems time traveling, which another big problem I had just with the story is that like how after 46 years are you not how have you not perfected time travel? And I get it. He even had some he admits that he got just like some formula wrong or whatever. That's why he becomes a kid. But at the same time, it's like, God, man, after 46 years, like figure it out, right? Like you jump to the future when you were a kid. You tell me as an adult you can't just like figure it out. Anyway, so he's at the commission, and then during this episode, I don't even want to talk about it too much because it all gets rewound and backed up because basically what happens is he jumps back. He does a little sabotage. He sends messages to Hazel and Cha-Cha to kill each other. So these are partners, right? They get separate messages when they're by themselves to kill each other. That's fun to watch. That's a really fun episode to watch. But then whenever he jumps back in, this is where we get into episode 7. Just kind of skipping. I don't want to skip over this, but it is. I mean, episode 6 is called "The Day That Wasn't," and episode 7 is called "The Day That Was." So like, it's a full one of those episodes where Vanya like found out that Leonard was a bad guy. She found the journal underneath her bed. Luther's Day. Oh yeah, it changed. He found out he was on the moon, but then he ended up like getting it together. I don't even remember what else, but it all got erased and it all started over. And it's the next day. It's like, we're gonna live this day all over again. 5 drops in and he's like, okay, we're gonna do this differently. We're all gonna fight together. And they all rally to be like, all right, we're gonna stop the apocalypse. And that's where episode 6 ends. It's like it kind of, restarts the day. All right, so then we find out number 7. So this is episode 7. This is where we finally get some backstory of Leonard. Well, big spoiler here if you don't know what we're doing here, but we find out that actually this Harold Jenkins, right? They drop us into this world of Harold Jenkins. It's 1989. He's born from a normal pregnancy, but on the same day as the Umbrella Academy. And he like idolizes them, right? He's like, I'm just like them. He like goes to a rally or something. Reginald Hargreaves. It had to have been. Hopefully, like I feel like it was from the perspective of him, the kid, Harold Jenkins. But Hargreaves like rejects him, embarrasses him in front of a group of people, and says, "Get out of here. You're normal, and you'll never be anything else." Very similar to what he tells Vanya her whole life. Obviously, there's parallels here, and this is why he ends up going after her. But turns out that this Harold Jenkins snaps after the Umbrella Academy rejects him, and he kills his dad with a hammer. It's pretty intense. His dad is one of those classic scenes where the kid's getting the beer for him, dad's in the recliner watching TV, and he just came in and bashed his brains in. So he gets 12 years in prison, and then we find out that this person is Leonard. He's the person that has really been behind everything with Vanya so far, planning, I guess, revenge at the end of the day. He learns that Vanya has powers. He reads the journal. Turns out, again, has these frequency powers, and he knows these pills are stopping him. And his plan is to like get her to team up with him and, I don't know, maybe kill the Umbrella Academy, but at the very least, just for them to be together, and she has powers. So 5, at the end of the episode, he came back in, right? At the end of episode 6, he tells everyone that this Harold Jenkins is the person that they need to find. They discover the person is Leonard. Allison, 5, Diego go to Leonard's house. They discover that he had Umbrella Academy stuff in a room. He had been scratching out their eyes. Again, wants him dead. Luther gets real depressed, super depressed, because he finds out his dad didn't open a single one of his moon packets. So Luther's like up on the moon sending his dad like packets of moon stuff. And he just gets real sad. I mean, it's sad because he's like, why did you send me up there? Like, why did we even do this? Like it was 4 years of his life on the moon. And it definitely feels like the dad wanted him out of the way. And we'll talk more about that later. But I thought the same thing. I thought that maybe he just wanted him out, didn't like him, but I think there is something more to the moon. Hazel and we already talked about them trying to kill each other, but then they end up trying to like kind of figure it out, kind of. And then Allison, knowing what's happened, they see what happens in Leonard's house. She goes looking for Vanya, which, as we find out, and now we're moving into episode 8, getting to the climax here of season 1. Allison is going to look for Vanya, and she finds out that they're out at this cabin, right? Well, they don't know that they're there yet, but they know that Leonard has a grandmother, or this Harold Jenkins has a grandmother that has a cabin out somewhere. This is where they are. This is where Harold has taken Vanya. Sorry, I took another drink. He's taking Vanya out there. They're hanging out. She's practicing her violin. She's got the big audition coming up, like another big. It's like actually not the big audition, the big recital. It's like It's like this is what she got. She got first chair, and now she's the star of this recital. And this is where Vanya just, again, I know it's intentional, but like they're trying to show you that you got to underestimate her. She's kind of annoying. But she really is, and she's just like an idiot, honestly. Like the guy Leonard, to her, is overly obsessed with her like trying out powers. Like he's got her out in the woods and on the lake, like trying to figure out these powers. And whenever it doesn't work, he actually ends up paying. We don't find this out till the next episode, but it's for the sake of the storytelling. He actually pays a group of like drunk guys at a bar to attack them. And this forces her powers out. And Vanya actually kills 2 of the guys. One of the guys is in critical condition. But they end up beating, call him Harold, so badly that this is where he loses his eye. And this just like triple confirms to you as the viewer, if you haven't picked up on it by now, this is the bad guy. Like, this is the guy that's causing everything, and most likely is going to cause this apocalypse. Which, keep in mind, we are on episode 8. You still have no idea what causes this apocalypse at all. Like, all you know now is that Harold Jenkins somehow caused it, but now we're kind of starting to think, okay, wait a minute, is it gonna be Vanya? Because that's been his whole thing, right? Getting Vanya to do it. So Allison finds Vanya finally. I mean, literally, really finally. As you watch it, you're like, thank God someone's finally out here. And she's trying to convince Vanya to come home with her. She learns very quickly that Vanya has powers, and Vanya is not hearing it. I mean, Allison breaks it down so clearly of like, here's the facts about Leonard. His real name is Harold. Me, Diego, and Five were just at his house. He had all of us, our pictures up, marked out on the walls. And Vanya's just like, I don't know. I think she's just too filled with rage to really acknowledge it. And yeah, ends up having like a real big confrontation with her sister. And they're having it out. And it's a really great build of anticipation and tension as like the room is like getting real bad. She's real angry. Allison's like, please stop. She's like, please don't make me use my power on you. And they're just looking at each other, and Allison finally says the words, I heard a rumor. And before she can even do anything else, Vanya slashes her throat. Blood comes down. Allison's bleeding, like holding her neck. And Harold comes running in. He is literally smiling. Again, Vanya, pay attention. And they get out of there. They run, and she leave her for dead. I mean, I really, spoiler alert, Allison doesn't die. If you've seen any previews or even watched, hopefully, if you're listening to this, watch season 2 already, you obviously know she doesn't. But I mean, at the time, I really did believe like Allison's dead. And it was really good. Probably one of the best scenes in all of season 1. Really, just really crazy. All right, so then we get a lot of background in episode 9. We finally get the full story of Vanya. So this is where it's going to tease up this big season finale in episode 10, and we find out all sorts of things. We find out that Vanya is had powers since she was a baby, just like everybody else. Her dad trained her just like everyone else, but then found out that she was just too powerful. We don't really know exactly the extent of how powerful, but we know that it's bad enough to where her dad had to build a special room just for her in the basement that it was covered with foam all around it. So like kind of like a studio, honestly. Except it's like locked with a steel door, so she can't get any frequencies to do anything. Not only do we find out that, we find out this is kind of why, I think this is why she attacked Allison kind of in their subconscious in the previous episode, but we find out that a young Allison was brought into the fold as a young child and like was told that Vanya was sick. We need to bring her some food. Well, turned out that Reginald Hargreaves actually told Allison to tell Vanya, I heard a rumor that you think you're ordinary. That is harsh. I mean, that's rough. I mean, I have so many thoughts about it, but just like, first of all, how crazy are these powers? Like, it doesn't seem like it's like some of these other mind control things we've seen in comic books. It seems like whatever she tells you, she is like, you're stuck with it forever. We even find out that she used it on her husband to tell her that he loved her. Heard a rumor that you love me. She used it on her daughter nonstop just for going to bed and shit. Who knows what else? Pretty shady. She goes through a pretty big story arc. And she uses this on Vanya at a young age. And Vanya, her whole life, can you imagine? Your whole life, you're just thinking in your head, like, I'm just completely ordinary, and that's the only thing I can ever do. Just really insane. So, obviously, a lot of tension and a lot of messy family stuff there. And 9 just breaks that wide open. They show everything. She ends up growing up on the pills. She doesn't know that she has powers. And then once she's realized all of this manipulation and of Leonard, she does get her revenge. She kills him on the spot. They have a big outing. She lifts him up. And we know that she didn't have to kill him. She could have just left or called her brothers and sisters. But this thing that like takes her over, it's weird. It's almost like there are two of them. It's like she's like the normalish one, but then like there's this other side of her that is just evil and bad. I think it's just her going through it, and she just kind of becomes blind with rage, kills Leonard. Five finds the body. Vanya's long gone. They don't even know that she's killed him. They don't even really know anything. They don't know that she has powers yet or anything until Allison breaks it down. But they do discover his body laying there, Leonard's, and Five has the eye with him, and he puts it in. And I think this is where I kind of got confused. I was like, did they already change the timeline? In my opinion, no, they didn't. It was always the same timeline. The eye always made its way to Harold, or I say Harold. I think it is Harold, isn't it? It's Leonard and what's his other name? I'm already forgetting it. Well, hold on, I'm driving me crazy. So Leonard and Harold Jenkins. Yeah. So we anyway, just a cool plot point of time travel. If you're like me, I always pay extra close attention to like time travel stuff because I think it's so fascinating. I want to know like how this timeline can be affected. Can it change? Was this always meant to happen? So after this, Vanya decides I'm gonna go. That's it. I'm gonna go talk to my family. And this is where you kind of think like, okay, cool. This is exactly what you want her to do. Like as as the person rooting for the Umbrella Academy and the apocalypse not to happen and trying to see if they can figure it out, you think like this is it. Well, no, Luther, of course. Again, I haven't really talked about this, but I mean, all throughout the first season, he's just also him and Diego. They're number 1 and 2. They're like the biggest babies about most stuff, like the most like in denial about things and handle things just poorly on the regular. Well, Luther succeeds again at making a poor decision, puts Vanya back in the studio room, basement, the chamber, if you will, and it's a powerful scene again. This is where Vanya's in there like, I can't be in here. She's screaming, and they're down there. They can't hear each other, but she can see through the glass. Again, like just a weird choice, like to even like you can't talk to her, but like she can see you. She's screaming and crying. Diego's like, get her out of there. Klaus is like, get her out of there. Allison shows up. She's fine. Well, not fine. She got the slit throat, but she can't talk, which of course the only one that needs her mouth to use her power. She can't talk. Sucks. She's like, absolutely not. Get her out of there. Well, I guess Luther's just too persuasive. Like this was a big plot hole for me. Like you're going to tell me that Klaus, who had memories, we didn't really talk about him so much yet, but just kind of high level stuff. We get flashbacks of his dad locking him in a crypt, like a cemetery building of some kind. And it's terrifying. You hear that little kid. He's like a little kid at the time, probably 8 or 9, maybe maybe older, maybe 12 or something. And he's screaming and crying. You would think that Klaus, of all people, would be like, this is the last thing you need to do. Anyway, so they leave her in there. And as the episode ends, Vanya gives all the way into her dark side. So we've seen her tap into it twice, right? She killed Allison. She really gave in when she killed Leonard and stabbed him in the heart with like multiple knives and stuff. All right, well, this time she has like a flat out conversation with her dark self. It's like kind of her younger self. And they're like, it's same old stuff. They're never going to accept you. They're always going to be afraid of you. If they're going to be afraid, might as well give them a reason. And she actually hones in on her heartbeat and she blows this door down. And that's how the episode ends. So here we go. Season finale, episode 10, season 1. What's going to happen? Here we go. Let's just talk about it. Sorry, there we go. All right. So they drop us in. You hear the big kaboom. Umbrella Academy is on their toes and the place starts falling apart. And they're all there. And Vanya is literally going room by room, having like a memory of a time when she was rejected by one of the siblings or two of the siblings at a time. And as she remembers it, she just blows it up, like literally just exploding each room as she walks through. And I hate this part, and it makes me so sad. I don't know why they would do this in season 1. Like, give us at least 2 seasons, but she kills Pogo, guys. Our talking monkey friend is hurled across the house into a deer antler, stabs him in the chest, and Luther like sees the whole thing. And so, boom, he's dead. Vanya disappears, and the entire mansion is building. I don't know what you want to call it, but it seems like it's in the city. Is totally leveled, totally just destroyed. Everyone's all right, obviously, because they're gonna have to stop her, right? And they figure out very quickly. I thought this was kind of funny too. Vanya's got a concert. She's in the newspaper, and they're like, that's where we're gonna make our stand. So they ended up this fight is uninterrupted. Sorry, really struggled through that. By the handler is what I'm trying to say. The person of the commission. So this is still happening. This fight with the commission is still going down. But there's some funny things that happen. And the biggest thing takeaway for me is that Hazel ends up killing Cha-Cha, or man, this is going to be interesting because I wonder if we'll ever get more of this. But anyway, we're led to believe he kills Cha-Cha. He, I remember. We actually find out Cha-Cha dies here in a minute, and I don't want to bury the lead, as they say. But he goes back. He shoots the handler in the head, and his love interest, which we haven't mentioned at all so far, but I'm sure if you're a big fan, this is just a funny, interesting thing. He fell in love with the donut lady at the diner. So he ends up going with her, kills the handler, kills his partner, and in your mind, you're like, okay, cool, commission's taken care of. So the others, the Umbrella Academy, go to where Vanya is at this recital. Recital is playing with everyone, and they're at the concert. And as she's playing, her powers start to happen. Like it starts to like make the frequency waves. Again, really bad plan here. Luther just like runs in after her. It's really a sad, weird moment. Like she's playing, it's going really well. Like she's playing really well. She catches the eyes of Allison, who's just standing in the middle, and like they're smiling. And you almost think for a minute, like, okay, well, we can figure this out, right? Like we're sisters, and we're brother and sisters. Like let's figure it out. Well, enter perfect, right? Luther and Diego, the two idiots, like the two leaders who happen to be the idiots. I feel like it's very representative of what we're going through now. Is it's the world. And they run in. She blows her gasket. She does like a power thing. Doesn't matter. Her powers are exploding now. Everyone runs out. The crowd's like, this is terrifying. We're left now just with the Umbrella Academy, and then I guess it's the commission trying to, or I don't even. I'll have to. This is interesting. Let's see if we can find it here. But a SWAT team actually comes in too, and they're shooting at everyone. I don't know if they're not hitting Vanya. I'll tell you that. But it's like this SWAT team that's trying to kill everywhere. Yeah, they're not trying to kill. I see, because that's right. Hazel and Cha-Cha were ordered to protect Vanya so that the apocalypse would happen. That's exactly what happened. So this SWAT team is there to kill the Umbrella Academy. Well, the Umbrella Academy it seems like they're on their last leg here. They're gonna die. Vanya's building up, playing the shit out of the violin, and Ben, Octopus Boy, haven't talked about him in a while, right? He's brought to life by Klaus. Klaus like does this. He kind of focuses his powers, and he octopuses everybody in the whole place, like his Ghost Ben. So like Ghost Ben it's been teased out throughout the episode or the season. Him and Klaus like high-fived, or like he punched him. He punched him in the face the first time. Ben like saved Diego and Klaus from the building falling. Well, now he's like full on octopus, and you're like, oh, there is a lot more to Klaus's powers, which was great because it really was probably the most boring power in the early part of the season. So they save themselves from this SWAT team, which I now believe is the commission. and they are going after Vanya. Vanya lifts them all up with these. They'll be referred to later as, like telekinesis tentacles or something. I forget what psychic tentacles. I think Diego calls them. Season 2, spoiler. And Allison has a gun back to Vanya's head, and she just shoots to the side, and it like breaks her trance. It stops. The Umbrella Academy fall. However, there is still a release of all the energy that Vanya was building up. It blasts out of her chest or up to the sky, out through the building, smashes into the moon. All right. And you're like, okay, everything looks fine. Honestly, it just looks like a little mark on the moon. And they're all there. They're all fine. And they're all just kind of there with each other. I think Luther's holding Vanya at this point. Well, moon explodes, guys. The moon explodes and it looks like legit. Like it looked really good. And it is falling down and it hits the earth and the apocalypse is going down. This is what I didn't want to tease out earlier, but we did find out like Cha-Cha, she got blown away in the apocalypse. Hazel and his donut love lady, they time traveled out. They're fine. And then the Umbrella Academy decide, again, this is just where I got annoyed. He's like, the number 5, I'll just time travel all of us out of here and we'll survive and we'll try again. You know, we'll do this again. I'm like, what the heck, dude? I get it. I guess I get that it's a last ditch effort and it's not the ideal plan because he messed up last time. But it was just kind of annoying to see like, oh, you can not only can you time travel, but you can take all of your siblings with you. So he takes them out, and they right before the world wipes itself out, they vanish. That's season 1, guys. That's the whole show. Overall, my feels on the show on season 1, drug out. It was a little bit of like get to it or give me more at least, but it ended with a really great plot point, a really good cliffhanger, I should say. And then season 2, we're going to do right after, for me, a quick restroom break. For you, hopefully it'll be pretty instant, assuming there aren't any ads yet, but if there are, we'll be right back after this break. All right, we are back. I should say I am back. Just a few things, guys, on the show before we dive into season 2. Website should be up soon. Hopefully by the time you listen to it. If not, it's all right. But it is mostlysuperheroes.com. If you get there and it's not up yet, don't worry. It's close. That'll be a great little home base for you to check out. Hopefully you're watching on YouTube. That's really where the magic happens. Don't get me wrong. I like a good old-fashioned podcast in the car as much as anybody else. Or going on a run or a walk. But if you're like me, I love watching my favorite podcasts on YouTube. Joe Rogan. I watch it like a TV show. I don't know if you watch me like a TV show, but if I'm on your TV, hi. All right, so that was season 1, guys. Umbrella Academy. Not what I would call the perfect season, but enough to keep me interested. Again, so many unknowns coming out of season 1. Who's this dad? Where'd they jump to at the end? How does time travel work? Still not like clearly established. So let's not even mess around here. Let's jump into season 2. Again, full spoilers ahead. If you have not seen season 2 of Umbrella Academy, I would go watch it and then come back and join us. So season 2, let's see here. It's this numbering's kind of got me messed. Okay, so episode 1. So this episode drops us right where we left off. It's apocalypse time, and the team is jumping. They jump with the 5, and we find out right away what goes down, and it's pretty awesome, guys. I'm not going to lie. A portal opens up in an alley. Excuse me. I'm learning that as I talk. When I talk like a lot, I get like a burp. I don't know if it like builds up, but I'm definitely learning what happens when I talk for a long amount of time. Anyway, enough about me burping. We are open up to this alley where a portal opens up, and I forget who drops out first, but here's the takeaway. They're dropping out one at a time at different points in time, right? Starts in 1961, I believe. They don't have the date in this description, but I know it's like early or mid 1961. One of them gets dropped in. I believe that's Luther. See if I can remember this off the top of my head. And Luther gets dropped off first. I think maybe Klaus gets dropped off after that in 1962. Vanya gets dropped off sometime in 1962 or 63. Allison gets dropped off at some point too, and then 5 is dropped off last, right? And this is where we find out that he's the last to arrive, not only in the order of them falling out of this portal, on their own in these different parts of time, but he's the one that's arrived like last in time. I believe it's November 25th, 1963. And what he finds here, guys, this is the teaser we got. If you watch the show, you saw like they don't mess around. You get that teaser right away, and it's sick. I mean, it's fucking sick. It's like it's his brothers and sisters fighting against, it was really confusing to see like who was fighting who, but basically you got just two armies fighting each other, and his siblings come in and they are more powerful than we've ever seen. And I forget who said this. I don't know if it was comicbook.com maybe or IMDb or Looper, I forget, but one of them had released like an article, and it might not have been any of those, so I apologize if I got that wrong, but you can look it up. And they were spot on. It's something about the Umbrella Academy comes back in season 2 with much heavier powers, which, like, if you're a comic book fan, you're not going to complain about bigger powers, but you are going to, like, I did feel like, let's just talk about some specifics. So you see in this sequence, Luther comes out like flying out of the sky. Like, I mean, he obviously just jumped like a Hulk jump. If you can picture that, if you picture like the Hulk jumping like around, it seemed like kind of like that. We've never seen him jump anywhere near like that, but he also could have been like falling out of a plane or something. But even that, like, we saw him get crushed by a chandelier, but now you're telling me he can jump like a building. Fine. Klaus looks like, all of them look like time has gone by. They all look like worn. So this is where like you can justify some of this because a lot of time has gone by. So they've hopefully honed in on their powers. They're picking it up. Well, Klaus is, again, he can talk to the dead, and we learned at the end of season 1 he can bring Ben to life. He's also now in this sequence, in this battle in 1963, he's got a whole army, like an actual army of dead people. I say an army, just soldiers, probably like 10 to 15, 20 soldiers, all marching with him as he's using his powers. Much different, right? Vanya's there. She's amazing. This is the one I actually buy because they set her powers up right. She blew up the moon for Christ's sake. She like stops a tank. A tank shoots a missile and she like disintegrates it. That was cool. Diego just looks like he's better at dodging bullets. And he can throw knives at the same time. He like jumps off a car, dodges every like 20 guys around him shooting, and then he like knives them all. Again, it's just kind of a boring power. It just kind of sucks, but I mean, it's still cool. I mean, he took out a lot of guys at once. Ben is there too, alive because of Klaus doing his octopus thing. Nothing's really changed there. And then Allison. I saved her for last because, I didn't talk about. I mean, 5 doesn't really show off because he's there learning with everyone. But Allison, this is the one that I was like, I don't know. She says, I heard a rumor that I blew your minds. And her power is like creep up these 3 soldiers, maybe more. I think it was 3. And like literally their eyes glow and then their head explodes. Like, what? Like, she could never do that. Like, she could tell you what to do, and now all of a sudden she's blowing up brains. I guess what she's learned maybe is that she can tell like their bodies what to do. Again, not complaining. I just feel like her power is already great enough. And honestly, if your power is to control people's actions, like, why kill 3 soldiers? Why don't you say like, I heard a rumor that you turned on your army? again, not trying to nitpick it. It just that part I did have a little bit of a problem with, but whatever. We find out that this is now, well, let's just talk through it. Enter in the middle of this battle. Again, this is episode 1. So that's the teaser you saw, but that's also what happens in episode 1. Enter Hazel. Hazel, right? The one of the agents from the early episode, from the first season, I mean. He's older. He's much older. Man, this one tugged at the heartstrings. I'm already getting the feels thinking about it. He jumps 5 out of there, tells him, before they jump, tells him, like, you have to come with me. There are nukes falling from the sky. This is an apocalypse that has never happened before, and you guys are going to have to stop it again. This time it happens in 10 days. So just a few thoughts. One, it's just funny that like they brought, like there's another apocalypse, right? Which is, it's cool, I guess. Like they're in time, they fuck stuff up so bad that this is happening. I get it. It's time travel stuff, and I'm all about it. It was just kind of funny. It was like, okay. And not only that, but what is it? So Hazel gets him back, gives him a briefcase, which immediately gets like destroyed, I think, or gets like shot up. And also gives him a video, like in Five's pocket, of like, hey, watch this video. This will tell you what's going on. But this is what I was getting the feels about. He actually had a full life, 20 years with the donut lady. And he says, like, I guess forever wasn't in the cards, but they were happy with what they got. Very just small side storyline, but just a feel good moment of like 2 of these people just like already had a great life. So that was cool. Hazel dies immediately because 3 Swedish gentlemen pop out. This is where we get introduced to the new kill squad for the commission. It's kind of like a no nonsense, we're done messing around type team. And they're there to kill 5. They killed Hazel. And I'm still kind of confused about what this team was doing. Like if they're trying to prevent this apocalypse. But let's just read through these episodes, and it'll probably come to me as it'll reveal itself, I should say. So in the video, we actually find out that well, let's just go through where a lot of these people are. So Diego's been there for a while. He's in a mental asylum because he wants to prevent the assassination of JFK. Allison's married to a civil rights activist. His name's Ray. Klaus starts a cult. Gets like a whole slew of following. People are just worshiping him. Vanya, Luther ends up being a bouncer for like some kind of like crime boss, like a mafia. For anybody that really actually knows, Jack Ruby, that's his name. Jack Ruby's like this crime boss / like fighter club guy, and he's working for him. And then Vanya has amnesia. Amnesia is always just a little, I mean, it's a choice, right? So it was just an interesting way to do it. But I liked it because it was like a road of like redemption story, because she had to slowly find out everything. And it was really good for the viewer because you kind of find out like what, I don't know, you just get to look at it through, one, it reminds you of what went down, but it also gives you like another perspective on how it all looks. And she's looking at it the whole season of what she finds out slowly, what she does, and it's just cool to see her react. And I think that's it. That's everybody. So then we move on to, so that's episode 1, season 2. They're sprinkled through time, and then by the end of the episode, they're all just, they're they want to try to find each other. Well, 5 wants them to find each other. But they just haven't really yet. They start to kind of trickle into each other's lives because remember, they were sprinkled out from like 1961 to 1963. So they were around each other a lot of the time. They just didn't know. All right. Episode 2. Let's just move right along here. So after 3 months after gotten shot by Hazel. So this is the handler now. That's right. Okay. So the handler returns. She comes back to the commission. She's got a bullet scar on her head. I mean, someone want to tell me how you survive a bullet shot straight to the head? I mean, seriously, this is where I kind of wonder, like, who is the commission and who are these people? Because like she got shot point blank in the head, not point blank, but 10 feet away in a hotel room. I guess you could argue that it like skewed off. I mean, if you watch Kill Bill, you know, she obviously makes it, if you're familiar with that flick. So anyway, she comes back, she goes to the commission, she goes to her office, and she's excited to be back. It's been, again, 3 months. They like let you know. And this is one of the coolest characters that we did not get near enough from, or of, I should say. The character gave it a lot, but like the show should have given a lot more of the character. Is a body, like a human body, but on top is a fish. It's not a fish bowl, but it's like a underwater mechanism with a fish like a goldfish. I mean, what? And it can talk. It like talks out of the body. His hand, like it's his body. He's controlling everything. He even smokes a cigarette. There's a hole for a cigarette. Just what? Again, we don't know shit about this commission, but anyway, she's back. And turns out this fish is in charge, and the commissioner, the former handler, has been demoted. They're like, hey, you got to go through the rankings again. Obviously, she does not take kindly to this, and we find out more about that later. We kind of get dropped into Vanya's life. Turns out she's like out on this farm living with this couple, and there's a whole bunch of shit that happens here. I know that one thing that I noticed is that this guy Carl that she lives with, he's a bad husband. He's a drunk, and apparently the wife and Vanya are like on the same page about it. They like bitch about it, and Vanya goes to pick up this guy because he's drunk at a bar, and Luther is there because it's the same club where Luther works, and this is at the same time, I believe Luther's inside talking to Five because Five found Luther in there, and Luther spots Vanya. He's talking to Five, so you can start to get the sense that all this is coming together. But anyway, Vanya has this weird home life situation where this is all I was wondering the whole time. Who is his family? Are these like her parents? Are these like her grandparents? If it's like the 60s, I'm trying to like put the timing together. But it turns out, just to kind of skip ahead a little bit, I think that this is literally just like a family. And they have like a kid. There's a kid that comes into play, and we'll talk about that later. What else happens in episode 2? So Allison, she's married to that civil rights activist. He's arrested by the cops because of Allison. Really, she got this guy, this white racist douchebag, tried to break into the barbershop where they all hang out, the salon, and have their meetings. She kicks him. Ray gets arrested. And then Diego and Five. This was the big reveal of episode 2. They watched that film that Hazel gave to Five, and their dad, Reginald Hargreaves, is present during Kennedy's assassination. So now it's like, okay, wait a minute. So there's an apocalypse coming. You got the JFK assassination coming up. And I love time travel stuff around like JFK, any big event. I mean, those are always what make time travel stuff fun, right? But also, I'm a big fan of Stephen King's novel 11/22/63. I believe that's right. I think that's the date that he ends up getting shot. And that's a great flick. That's, if you're a big Stephen King fan, I would highly recommend the book. I would strongly recommend not watching the show with James Franco on Hulu. No hate on James Franco, love him, but like that show was just didn't do it justice. But anyway, I digress. We find out that their dad is present, so Diego's of course going crazy about it. That's what he's been trying to do since he's got there. And Diego and Five actually they discover an old company name that their dad used to operate under. Looks like it's a front of some kind. Like it's like they get to the office, their dad ends up being there, but you don't see him till the very end. The coolest thing that happens here is Five meets a baby, not a baby. Like, they say a baby here, but I mean, he's just like a much younger, not talking Pogo, the talking ape from the future, if you will, respective to where they are. And then Diego and Reginald. So Diego and his dad get into a fight, like in the alley out back, and Reginald stabs Diego before just walking off and being like, I think he says like amateur or something. Cool scene. just confirms that like this isn't some shady character that's not their dad. It is their dad. He's very much involved on some level, and really, really fun to see the Umbrella Academy like living in the 60s when their dad is still alive, because we haven't really we see them as kids functioning with their dad, but we don't see them as adults. So this is just a cool storyline that they're setting up, that like their dad's going to play a part. So we see episode 3. We get dropped back into Elliot's house. So we haven't talked about Elliot yet, but Elliot is kind of like he's like this regular guy. He lives in the 60s just like normally. He's on a time travel or anything. He's a conspiracy theorist, and he is discovered by happenstance. Is that the right word? Happenstance? That where this portal opened up over the years. Because keep in mind, this alley portal opened up at the same place for 3 years, dropping the Umbrella Academy out. However, it was always a different time. So he actually has like an automatic camera set up. He's documented everything that's ever happened with the portal. And this is inevitably how 5 like goes and finds the rest of the academy. So pretty cool, fun character, cool place. It's like their home base for the show for the whole season. And it's like this big, beautiful old building. I mean, for real too, not just like in the show. Like it's like a real place, it looks like. The guy used to be a dentist. So there's like all sorts of stuff around him, and Luther end up doing nitrous at some point. I think I'm getting ahead of myself, but that's a fun scene. So back at Elliot's house, Diego's fine. Lila, we haven't talked about Lila yet, but we get introduced to Lila in the asylum where Diego is being kept. She's like this crazy chick, great accent, and they're kind of like anti-lovers for a minute. You know what I mean? Like they start off like hating each other, and then they end up liking each other, and she sticks with him the whole time from here on out. More about her coming up, which I think we'll find in this episode actually. So actually, while we're on her, because it is in this episode 3, we find out that Lila is actually the handler's daughter. So once we find out that, it's like, okay, well, what's going on there? And not only do we find out that the handler, this is her daughter, this Lila person, but they're also nearby, like in a hotel, like being mother and daughter. Like they're just talking about stuff, talking about how Lila's hanging out with the Umbrella Academy, but no real plan of action from the commissioner. I'm sorry, from the handler. So you're wondering, like, what's happening here? Like, is the handler working on behalf of the commission? Because the last time we saw her, she was not happy at all with the decision they had made, and now she's just here, of course, right where the Umbrella Academy is. All right. What else? Who else in this one? So Ray, this is Allison's husband. In this episode, he gets released from prison because he ends up meeting Klaus in the slammer. Klaus got arrested. I forget why. It wasn't the biggest reason, which is why I know it wasn't as important. But he gets out. Klaus and Allison are because Allison and Klaus get reunited. And so he gets Ray out. This guy's good. I love this actor that plays Ray. He just did a really great job. Ray actually finds Luther at their house looking for Allison. Luther has chocolates because he's tracked down Allison now. He had Jack Ruby look her up. And he says that I'm her brother. Ray's kind of getting out of sorts about Allison because he's met 2 guys in 2 days that are say that they're her brother. They're not African American. They're not black. They're big. One's a big white guy and one's like a hippie, skinny white dude. Like they're obviously not resembling each other. And he's like, what's going on here? And then Klaus goes on a mission to find Dave. So this is a big callback, right? Season 1. Dave is the lover of Klaus that he met in Vietnam whenever he time traveled in season 1. And he goes back and sees him at a paint store. And his plan is to prevent Dave from going to Vietnam ever in the first place, which I'm all about, because in my mind, I'm like, okay, well then you guys can like live together and be together in the 60s without him having to go to Vietnam and dying. Like even if he doesn't go there and meet Klaus, now you're getting into Paradoxville, because like had that not ever happened, would they have ever even time traveled back to the 60s? Who knows? I don't think Klaus cares because he's just trying to save his life. And yeah, then again they end with Lila kind of coming out as the handler's daughter. So far, just so to check in, we're on episode 4 here. Already, this season is doing great, right? I think it's already got my attention. Yeah, it's a little bit of a recycle reuse situation. Some of the big points, but also, it's keeping my attention, and I'm having a lot of fun. I love trippy time travel stuff. So anytime you get messing with a timeline, or you got people in different parts of the timeline, it's just really really fun for me. So number 4, this episode's titled Majestic 12. So Lila is instructed with protecting 5 at all costs. This is from the handler, I believe. She learns that she caused. Oh, I'm sorry. This is Vanya. Vanya then discovers that she caused the original apocalypse. She returns to the Cooper family, just wanting to hang out. Allison is now being confronted by Ray of saying like, "Hey, who are these brothers that showed up? Like your brothers that showed up, and they're having issues at home. She can't come to terms with telling him what's going on." And then we get dropped in with Diego, Lila, and 5. Okay, so we got this little team up of these. This really good dynamics with these 3. It's just fun to watch. And there's this gala they attend. And I forget exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for some more info, right? Obviously on the apocalypse or whatnot. And Reginald was invited to attend. So I guess one big point out of this with the handler and whatnot, right? There's one big thing that's happening. She is not on board for this apocalypse. She's like, first of all, this one never happened. It's not supposed to happen. But also 2, she's like obviously like anti-commission right now. So she doesn't really care what they're up to. In my opinion, that was just kind of my opinion type thing. They go to this gala anyway. Diego, Lila, 5, and Reginald is there, and Diego encounters Grace at this gala. So this is their mom now. So this is interesting. This is where you're like, okay, so she's a human. It's like very, to me, very obvious. She's not the robot from before. She's she's got a little bit of character to her. She's just more human. She like talks like a human. It's not as scripted. She also has a very like twangy accent. So that's like the big indicator for me is that she's definitely like this person that Reginald that likes. Diego shares with her later. I believe like it's toward the end, but just to get out of the way, like, hey, Reginald is involved with the assassination of JFK. Grace gets suspicious of this, and then inevitably ends up leaving Reginald because of it. Just interesting. It's like, did this always happen? I think not. I think this is already like gonna mess with the timeline. It seems like, who knows? But anyway, she leaves him because of what Diego did. And then Dave, this is Klaus's guy. Oh, I'm sorry. No, this is Klaus. Sorry. Klaus failed to get Dave not to join the army. He like did it in a really bad way. He like confronted him at a diner, went in front of his tough uncle, and ends up getting real drunk. This is Klaus, and ends up drinking like all day with Allison. They just end up getting hammered, which that's a fun scene, I guess. Whatever. And that's really it. That's episode 4. So here we go, moving right along. Episode 5, we're at the halfway point. This one's called Valhalla. I don't know if I'm saying that right. That might be just totally wrong. But this is where we get into some character development. So Vanya, formerly just like friends with this wife, right? She's just like with this wife of, I forgot his name already. And they end up dating. Like, I say dating. They're just together. They're lesbian lovers, and they're keeping it a secret, especially in the 60s. That was not only are you like cheating on your husband, but with a woman at that time would have been just like they say it throughout the whole show, like this woman is just terrified for anyone to find out. So that's a love interest they start, so we know that that's obviously going to come to a head. Luther tells 5 and Diego that he actually went and saw his dad Reginald again, this is where Luther just is an idiot and like a baby. He goes into the old Umbrella Academy, which is really cool. It's like it's a big party scene, right? It's like he's actually Reginald's throwing this big bash, telling jokes, having drinks, having fun. I don't know, he's maybe 25 or so, 30, and just like a young cocky guy. And Luther runs in there all dirty and tries to convince him that he's from the future. He sounds like a lunatic, and is surprised when his dad's like, "Get out of here! I don't believe you." Or even if I did, like, I don't want anything to do with this. And then 5 gets really suspicious of Lila. Again, this is Diego's like love interest and also the handler's daughter. He kicks her out, says, "Get out of here. I know that you're up to something." 5's just a smart dude and says, "Get out of here." And then the Swedish dudes, this is kind of a storyline they're sprinkling throughout the season, but they lose one of their brothers to the Umbrella Academy, and they're really upset about it. They're 3 Swedish brothers, and they're on a revenge story, and that just carries on throughout. Vanya decides to leave the Cooper family after catching Sissy sleeping with Carl. So that's her husband's. And this is so funny. I couldn't help but laugh anytime they said this lady's name, Sissy, and for short it was Sis. Like, who do you like? Regardless, if you're the husband or Vanya, like either way, you're a lover. You want to call your lover Sis? Just a stupid name. She gets mad and she leaves because she's like, this lady's sleeping with her husband. She's like, "Oh, I thought we were together." And then this is the big thing at the end of episode 5. This is where I got super excited. The Umbrella Academy get an invitation. It's in the mail, I guess, just some kind of letter from Reginald, their dad, and then they invite him to a dinner. And they're like, "Okay, we're gonna go to this." Klaus goes back to his cult to kind of come clean, and Allison does the same thing. She decides she's gonna come clean to Ray and tell him everything. It's a funny scene. He actually ends up doing like they go around and he like gets to try on suits in like a white only store. They end up like leaving with a bunch of stuff. I wondered if they paid. I was curious if she like how much did she use her powers? Did she use them to like get free suits? It's a stupid thing to wonder, but I was curious. I mean, if you're going that far, are you just going to do the fashion show, or are you going to get some free suits? But it was fun. You bring Ray into the fold, so you're like, what's going to happen with this guy? Is he going to go back with him to the future at some point, or what's going to happen? But the big thing that happens in this episode, we're now in episode 6, which is called A Light Supper. 2 big things. One, they meet with their dad, and they go around, they show their powers, or they tell him about their powers for the most part. And basically Reginald does zero help. He's like, "I don't have anything to do with this, or if I did, I can't share it with you." By this, I mean the apocalypse and or the assassination of JFK. But he does have a one-on-one with 5, which is a fun scene. Because again, this actor that plays 5, he really does do such a great job of playing an older character. And so they just have this cool back and forth. He gives him some tips. Reginald gives 5 some tips on time traveling, and tells him, of course, what he should have done in the first place is like, instead of trying to travel years or decades at a time, why don't you travel seconds at a time and practice? And me just being good at reading into this stuff, I said to my fiance as we watched, I was like, that's going to be a huge plot point later, him traveling in time seconds, and we'll get there, but I'm just going to say I was right. And then the other thing that happens is the handler offers 5 a deal that if he kills the board of the commission, so she can become the one in charge, then she will not only, well, no, this is really just one deal. She's going to send them back to 2019. That's where they're originally from, with a briefcase, of course. And neither apocalypse happens. And 5 is like, "I thought you said the apocalypse had to happen." She says, "Not anymore," like I said earlier. So it's cool. It's like a pretty good deal. And then episode 7 drops us right into 5 killing the board. Really great scene. He gets in there, kills all of them, kidnaps the fish, gives it to the handler. Handler's in charge. Cool. He gets the briefcase. This is where things start to speed up now, right? We're on episode 7. Well, this is where the tension's building. We're on the countdown of the apocalypse. I don't know how many days are left at this point. Probably just a couple. But here's the catch. Five's only got 90 minutes to get the rest of the Umbrella Academy back to a meeting spot. They choose the alley where they first arrived. He's got 90 minutes to get them all there. A lot happens here. Vanya wants to bring Sissy and the boy. I think this happened. This happened in the episode before. So one big thing with Vanya, and obviously we've set the stage, right? So in episode 7, we're going to try to get everybody on the same page. And if it's within 90 minutes, they're going to go back to the future. Pretty good deal. Obviously, it's not going to happen, in my opinion, because we're only on episode 7. You do this on a season finale, like episode 10, that's another story. But I was like, this is never going to happen. So I got my hopes up a little bit, but not too much. But one of the cool things that happened with Vanya is that she is out at the farm, out with Sissy, the kid, who I believe is autistic. He overhears that she's gonna leave Vanya, and he loves Vanya. Runs off, gets into a pond, I guess, and drowns. And I'm just really stroking my own ego here. I called this too, right before it happened. She uses her powers to push the water back, kind of like Moses parting the 7 seas. And the kid is down there. She pulls him out. He's not breathing. She does CPR. And it's is he going to die? No, they got the body out. They're not just going to pull this body out for us to look at him die. I wouldn't think. Well, CPR doesn't work. It does look like he's going to die. But then I missed one big thing from the beginning of the season, and I'll address it right now. But for the sake of finishing up this real quick, little glowy things come out of Vanya, go into the kid, and he's fine. He breathes. Now, at the beginning of this season, there's a big overarching. It's a flashback of a younger Reginald. It does not say when. It says a long time ago, I believe. And he is with this woman that's dying in a bed. You're led to, it's the classic scene of anyone dying in a bed. Dark room, blankets. They're having intimate talk, and she's talking slowly. She's obviously on the way out. She dies, and he collects. I don't remember exactly. I want to assume they came from her. I don't know for sure, but he has in a jar the same glowy things that came out of Vanya to save this kid. Not only that, so this is at the very beginning of the season. This is episode 1. So sorry, I didn't talk about it right away, but if you're waiting for me to get there, here we go. Not only does he have this thing of jars of these glowy things, but he lets them out into the air. And during this shot of him doing this at a window, we get all sorts of things. And when I say all sorts of things, I mean from this one shot of obviously very CGI, there's it looks like maybe they're on another planet. I don't even know. There's stuff in the there's equipment and just apocalyptic looking stuff in this field, this big giant field. There's things in the sky making trails and ships. I think it might have been even it looked like nukes or rockets maybe shooting up. But I don't quote me on those, because it is meant to be a very confusing, convoluted scene. But it's setting up whatever's going on with Reginald, right? Well, anyway, Vanya has these little glowy things that we've only seen one other time, as she is she saves this kid with them. More on that later. Still here on episode 7. So again, Vanya saved this kid, but she's still out at the farm. The only ones that make it on time are Luther, 5, and Klaus, which just real fun, real quick in this episode, just to touch on it. Klaus gets possessed willingly by Ben, because we find out that that's possible now, and lets him walk around and stuff. And Ben gets him back to the thing on time. But Vanya does not make it, and Allison does not make it because, let's see, I knew this would all come together again. the Swedes, the brothers, break into Ray and Allison's house, where Allison is now like told Ray about everything. She says she has to leave. Super sad, but honestly, the guy's taking it like a champ. I mean, really just kind of okay with everything, which I don't know. I don't know if I'd be like that if it was my wife. I wouldn't just be like, all right, yeah, peace out, have fun in the future. I'd be like, let's go. I'll go. But anyway, the Swedes break in. Real fucked up scene here. She rumors like the main brother. I say the main one, the one that's like always in the middle, the main dude. And she says, I heard a rumor that you killed your brother, and he strangles his brother to death. Like, it's kind of slow. And then that guy ends up just leaving, runs out because he's just so devastated with what he's done. Ray, just being a cool guy again, him and I think Luther shows up, or no, Klaus shows up, and they're like, we're going to hide this body and stuff. So just real funny, kind of a funny scene, but she doesn't make it. And then he has to Five ends up having to throw away the time traveling briefcase, which contained the new timeline. He throws it into the portal and gets rid of it because it was going to jump. I guess like it was set with a timer. It was going to jump to this new timeline. But since they weren't all there, it's pretty big of him, I guess. Just shows how much he loves his family. At the end of the day, he's like, I'm not going to leave anybody. He could have easily just like gone with it and been like, whatever. But anyway, like I said, they weren't going to do it. And this is where this episode's called Oga for Oga. And that's a funny part because the Swedes, before they go and try to kill Allison, they actually do kill Elliot, which is sad. He's the guy again. He's the guy that brought the Umbrella Academy really back together in the 60s by taking all those pictures and stuff. They kill him with like dentist equipment. Messy. But they put Oga for Oga, which is Swedish, on the ground. And Diego and Luther, I guess they're just made to be idiots. It's just like one of the biggest parts of the show. They're like, oh, Oga for Oga, like that's a name. Let's look it up. They call. Luther tries talking to her. She's just some woman, and that's like, what's going on? And Diego gets on there, says, "You'll be dead by nightfall." And then Five comes in. Yeah, I think it's Five. He comes in and says, Oga for Oga is Swedish for eye for an eye. So it's not Oga for Oga. It's actually eye for an eye. They're on a revenge path. Again, we found that out. Anyway, so Elliot's dead. The Umbrella Academy's here. They didn't regroup in time and forced Five to throw away that briefcase. So as we enter episode 8, we get dropped into we actually get dropped into an FBI building because Vanya, in the last episode, we didn't cover it yet, but we'll cover it real quick, is being interrogated by Special Agent Willie Gibbs from the FBI, which it's mentioned here. So I wonder if that's like a famous person. If you're listening and you know who Willie Gibbs is, feel free to let me know. And we didn't talk about it, but what happened in the previous episode is Carl, I think his name was, the husband that lives with Vanya and the sissy lady and the kid. He finds out about them. So Vanya goes into a panic, says to Sissy, we're going to leave. They leave. Dumb Sissy leaves a note, and they get pulled over by the police, and Vanya gets arrested. They think that she's a Russian spy for the KGB. And actually, she can speak Russian because the interrogator, this Willie Gibbs guy, speaks Russian to her. She speaks it back without even thinking about it. I figured that wasn't an Umbrella Academy thing. It's just meant to be like an extra layer of why this guy's keeping her. And then she's drugged and tortured with electrical shocks because they've seen her powers too, and they don't know what's going on. And this is what we find out is the cause of the apocalypse. So what happens is, I think Diego, he figures this out because he has been taken to the commission, the Time Bureau. He's gotten a job because Lila really does like legit seem like she loves him and is like wants him around. She's crazy, but she does want him around. So she convinces her mom to give Diego a job. I'm like all in on this. I'm like, okay, this would be cool, right? Let's see Diego work for the commission and see what happens. But anyway, he kind of does what Five does in season 1. He reads the landscape. He finds out, not just finds out, but sees on a video camera, because the commission's the commission, um, that the cause of the apocalypse is Vanya exploding in the FBI building, and because of that, the JFK parade, which is happening at the same exact time as all this, speeds away. JFK lives. However, the explosion causes like the countries to think there was a try on his life, and it causes the nuclear war, which inevitably leads to World War III, which is where the Soviets, they've come over to the United States, and this is the big final scene that we've been teased with and seen in episode 1. This is what causes it all. So we get this big, long, drawn out scene, right? Let's make sure I don't miss anything else, because this is leading into the last 2 episodes. But there's this big, long, drawn out scene of Diego, Klaus, I want to say Allison. I'll think about that. Maybe I might have that wrong. But I think that is it, though. I think it's those 3. They're in the FBI building. Vanya's like exploding. She's killed multiple agents already. If you look around, they're dead. And they're going against this wave of energy, and it's building and building and building. And Allison fails. Diego fails. Then it's up to Klaus, and you're like, how's Klaus going to make it? Klaus fails. Well, then there's one more set of shoes left. It's Ben, the ghost, and he's walking through these waves fine because it's not affecting him. He's a ghost. And that's where the episode drops. And now we're on episode 9. So it doesn't waste any time. Ben gets to Vanya. Does this weird... Again, this is like where you could argue like, oh, I didn't know that's how it would work. But Vanya's like in her own head, right? She's like got one of these scenes where she's like in a basement of the Umbrella Academy. She can't break out, and like that's why she can't wake up. Ben gets into her body, and I guess and her mind. And I'm sorry, grab a drink here. Excuse me. Thank you. Get parched talking about this stuff, guys. Jeez. So he gets into her body, like ghost style, and goes and convinces her it's all fine. But however, during this little exercise, we find out a couple things. But the main thing is that Ben does die for her to come out of this. Apparently, her energy has been killing him, essentially, the whole time. But then we also find out that in a flashback that whenever Ben like first died or around there, he saw Klaus when they were kids, like 12, and he's been around like ever since. And Klaus apparently thought this was his fault all these years that he stuck around, but Ben's like, no, I just wanted to stay around. So just kind of a weird plot point, but it was really sweet. It was just like, no, I didn't stay for you. I stayed because I was too scared to go into the light, which I don't know. If I'm a ghost, maybe I stick around. I don't know. So anyway, Ben does go. She comes out of it. Essentially, you're like, okay, well, they've done it. They've saved everything. They blow up. They get out of there, and she's back. She goes and checks on the crew. They're all right. And then let's see. This is episode 9. Make sure I don't miss anything here before we get to this big season finale. Because it's a good one. No, I think that's it. So JFK continues his parade. Oh yeah, he continues his parade and is assassinated, even though Diego does try to stop it. We do see that Reginald is there, as we were told. However, yeah, and it does look like he's actually maybe involved with it, because he gives Diego a note. So what happens here? Sorry, Diego ends up like tackling this dude that looks just like Reginald, and you think like, oh, he's the one that's going to kill JFK. Maybe Diego will stop it. Turns out it's not him. It's just a very much doppelganger, like that looks like him. And there's a note. The guy gives Diego a note of like, "I told you so," and that's like a callback to the beginning of the season where Diego says, "Dad will find a way to tell us I told you so in the past somehow." So that's the big reveal there. And then the very last thing in episode 9, which I'm not even gonna lie, I thought at this point this was the season finale, because like so much had happened. I thought, oh, this is how it's going to end. We get Reginald meeting up with a group of people. So I know I'm realizing I misspoke, but I'll clarify here about the JFK assassination and Reginald's involvement. He goes into this group of guys that we've seen throughout this season that he's always meeting with. It's like these secret society of sorts, right? They're up to all sorts of stuff. And he says, I told you that president shouldn't have been killed. And basically they all say like, fuck off. Like we don't care about you. We're not scared of you. Why don't you just shut up and get out of here? All right. Well, this is the big thing. All right. If you have not seen this season yet, this is the big thing. Reginald takes off his skin from the back like a mask. And all you don't see anything other than the back of his head kind of like flip out, like kind of like falling out of it a little bit. And it looks like I don't know, like a fish. I mean, I don't think it has anything to do with that fish I mentioned earlier, but like a green looking fish, like almost like a swamp thing. Or like the creatures of the Black Lagoon, like what Black Lagoon, something like that. But like you don't see his face or nothing, but he takes off this skin suit and like kills them all. Who knows, guys? Who knows? All I know is that this guy I think has maybe been around for a long time. I'm gonna say that maybe he's an alien from another planet. Maybe he's just like kind of like the Umbrella Academy. Maybe he's just like special. Maybe they're all from like the same stuff. Like anyway, let's get through this and I'll give my final thoughts on the show itself and like kind of where it'll go. But here we go. Big season finale, season 2. Really great season finale. All right. So the Academy learns that they're now wanted as terrorists for supposedly aiding in the assassination of JFK, since they're all around it, especially with Vanya. Vanya's like at the center of all this. And they're like, yeah, we had this girl and she blew up an FBI building. So there's all this stuff about it. And Lila reveals herself during this big battle now that's going to take place at the farm, right? This is at Sissy's farm. Couple crazy things that happen at the farm just before we get into the big battle. One, as Vanya was going through her trance of sorts, before when she was going to blow up the FBI building, the kid, Sissy and Carl's kid out the farm. Yeah, if you're thinking what I'm thinking, what? The kid? Yeah, the kid has something to do with this. And I was lost. But it was because I forgot that he ate those like life jewels that came from Vanya. So apparently they're connected on some level. And he's like having the same powers as Vanya as she's in the city at the FBI place. Carl, the drunk douchebag dad, who called the cops on him, decides he's going to take the kid out of there. Long story short, him and Sissy end up fighting over a gun. Gun goes off. The kid uses Vanya's, or his, you could argue, powers now to ricochet the bullet, kills the dad. Awesome. Like, great moment. I was like, good, this guy sucked. He always sucked. So that happens at the farm. Well, then the rest of the Umbrella Academy show up. It's a really cool scene where this is where they changed the formula a little bit and said, like, we're going to, do it right. We're going to get the team together. Vanya says, you guys figure out the apocalypse, or if you guys want to go back, whatever. I got to go out and see Sissy. and I'm going to try to bring her with me, or I got to fix the kid too, because she knows that the kid's like having some kind of issues. So as she's getting in the car to go out there, they all start getting in one by one. This is where she tells Klaus that Ben told her it's not your fault he stuck around. Luther, they all get in the back seat. Five even comes. He gets in the front because he's the oldest. Luther gets in the back. The car like sags real low. It's a really nice moment, and like it was the first time. It's really the first time you see the whole group come together. So yeah, nice job, show. You got the feels over here. It was nice. It was a nice moment. So they go out to the farm. Kid's like having a fit. Like he's creating like a temporal something over, like a frequency wave over the barn, and they're trying to fix it. And as this is happening, and as Vanya is trying to fix him, the handler shows up with Lila, the daughter, and they're out in the field. Diego and Luther go out there, maybe Klaus, I forget, maybe Allison, but either way, they're all there. And excuse me, another one. And he says, "Oh, there's 7 of us and 2 of you." She's there to, let me try to like really remember this. So they're there to like kill all of them. I don't know why. I really like, why does she want to kill them? Vanya, let's see, Lila reveals herself to have the power of the mirror powers of the Academy. She realized that and then we realize that this is a big reveal here. Lila is one of the 43 children. So we figure that out. Yeah, it's confusing to me still why like the handler wanted to kill all these people. But regardless, they're there to do it, and she ends up snapping in all of these agents from the commission because she's the director now. She's in charge, so she runs the place. I mean, hundreds, maybe maybe a couple thousand of these handlers with all these briefcases show up, and Vanya is like, "I'm going to take care of this. You guys all stay back." Like they're all under fire. Everybody's like struggling. Vanya gets up. She blows them all away with her powers. It's awesome. But then we see there's 2 people left in the middle. It's the handler and Lila. This is where we find out she has those powers. So I was calling it from day one. I was like, every time she fights 5, it seems like she's like definitely like spatial jumping. Well, now we're finding out that she can mimic every single person's powers, like all of them. And like they brought it up. I still can't tell if it was true. Like, but it seems like, could she do more than one at once? I don't exactly remember. I know that she mimics Vanya's powers, and she blows them all to hell. Vanya gets like knocked out, I think. She mimics, I don't know about Luther. I know she mimics Allison, because Allison tries to rumor her, and she rumors her back before she can even say it and says, "Don't breathe." And you really think that like Lila's gonna die. But she doesn't. She, again, just another Allison scare for you. You gotta have one. So they all fight. It all comes down to this epic battle with Lila, and then they finally get a moment to talk to her inside the barn. They get the kid calmed down a little bit, but he's still kind of like freaking out in the corner. That's just like kind of like a side story. And they level with Lila, like, "Hey, you're one of us. Don't kill." Well, before anything can happen, all of the Umbrella Academy gets shot and killed. Like, here's the thing. If you're going to do this kind of stuff, you just got to make it a little bit more believable. I'm not shitting on you. It's fine. But like, I'm sitting here going, of course, this is what's going to happen, right? They all got shot by the handler. And Lila, even, I think she ends up getting shot by her mom at the very end. Like, they're like, she shoots her too, because they're not on the same page. Well, anyway, 5 is not quite dead. He's on the ground. He's watching all of this. He's watching Lila and her mom talk. The Swedish guy shows up and ends up shooting a couple people. He shoots the handler, and then like he's going to kill 5. You guys know where this is going, right? I mean, especially if you saw it. Hopefully you saw it if you're listening. He travels back in time merely 5 seconds, fixes everything, shoots the handler. And I think they end up letting the Swedish guy go, because they're like, you know what? His battle was with the people that ordered this shit in the first place, and he doesn't try to kill Allison or anything. So that's how it ends. Big climax. Lila vanishes. She's alive. The handler's dead, but Lila's like, "I'm not dealing with any of this," and she vanishes. She has a briefcase, maybe. Just grabs one of them. And the show ends with the Umbrella Academy saying their goodbyes. And the Academy, I'll make sure I don't miss anything before we get to this big ending. So they get to the ending, they go to the Umbrella Academy, they're back in 2019. They all hug, they're all like, "We actually did something right for the first time ever." Really great moment. And they go in the living room to have a beer or a drink, and Reginald is there, first of all, alive. And they're like, "What are you?" He's like, "I knew you'd come back." That's one big thing. Says, "I knew you'd come back." To me, it's like because he remembers them from the past, like when the 60s. And they say, "Of course we're here. Like, we're the Umbrella Academy." He's like, "The what?" And then he says that this is actually a new group called the Sparrow Academy. And they turn around and they look up, and Ben is alive. He's number 1 now. This is awesome, right? I mean, first of all, just so cool. Like Ben's back. Like I think that he's a great character. And 5 different children and an unidentified floating green tube. I'm sorry, cube. Um, and that's the end. So just like, Jesus, guys, what was that? I mean, what we at? I don't even know. We're at 2 hours, so yeah, that's. I mean, that's pretty good to go through what 2 full seasons and 20 episodes in 2 hours instead of instead of 20 hours. That's the show, guys. Overall thoughts. I really love this show. I think there's so much more to explore. I think that this is a show that could easily go for another 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons because there's so much about this dad we don't know. We know that time travel can be changed. And now Ben's back and alive, and like you got these 2 Umbrella Academies, like one that's like I thought they were like a little bit younger, even like the Sparrow Academy or whatever, which I don't know where that came from. Sparrow. I don't know. Either way, though, now like how are they all going to function together? A couple outstanding questions: is Allison's daughter alive? I would say probably yes. I'm gonna take a guess that they didn't like take her Claire away, but like maybe they did, and that will be like a big plot point, right? She'll just want to go back and fix it or get her daughter somehow. How will the relationship be with Klaus and Ben now that they're like both alive and like Ben doesn't even know Klaus? That's a good dynamic. We finally will hopefully get a Vanya that's just fully her own character and gets to just kind of have fun. I hope that she gets to have some fun this season 3. I don't know if they're even renewed, but we'll find that out. Overall, though, really great show. Had a lot of fun watching it. And yeah, I wanted to dive deep in it today. So I'm, if you've stuck with me this whole time, like I said, I tried to cover as much as I could. I mean, most of it, I had the episodes here in front of me on Wikipedia, just so I could, I needed some notes to follow. But for the most part, that's just from my memory. So come back and join us. We'll do a lot more of these, some things to look forward to. In the oh man, one thing I wanted to say is I don't know if they showed him or not, but I'd love to see if Pogo is still alive. That'd be cool. And like also what happened to Grace? Like did she left, so did he just never make their mom? And like that'll be it. Sorry, had to get a couple other thoughts out there before we actually wrap it up. I'd like to see more of that fish character too, that fish in the bowl, or at least tell me more about like what the hell's going on with the commission, who those people are. But we got some more stuff coming up, guys. In the near future, some things to watch for. One, like I said, definitely check us out on social. We'll engage with you and try to get, if you're trying to get on the show, maybe get you to call in or something. We want you to be involved with this thing. Call me out about what I missed. Feel free. We'll post this online and have it up everywhere. And feel free to write us, send us a note, DM us, call us. Tear me apart. Tell me that I just missed the whole premise. If I've missed the biggest point of the show, let me know. But at the end of the day, I think it's a fun one, and I'm excited to see what Umbrella Academy does next. Coming up in the near future, we're going to do some more deep dives, some things on our list. The Twilight series, the movies we're talking about. I've never read the books, but I have a group of friends that we're going to be diving into those, at least the first couple. And I imagine if we do the first couple and like it, we'll do them all, or maybe we do something like this where we just try to like, breeze through them. I don't want to speed through it too much. Doom Patrol, there's a lot of parallels obviously with this show and that show. And I've just restarted it, so we're definitely gonna do a deep dive of that. Once I finish that, we'll do another episode just like this. But then also just some fun episodes where we get more of my crew in here and we just break open superhero news, talk about some miscellaneous things, give you hopefully some laughs, maybe some cries. It might get real, who knows? And other than that, guys, we're just gonna keep it going. I hope you're having a lot of fun. We're gonna keep putting out content. I know I'm having a good time. Love getting in the studio. I was aching to get back in here today, and I hope that you have a good rest of your day. Hope you're feeling good out there, and we'll see you next time on Mostly Superheroes. Take it easy.